Elias Rowan had been trained for many things. He had trained to walk into hostile territory without fear. He had trained to keep his hands steady while weapons were aimed at his chest. He had trained to speak carefully, slowly, in languages that did not belong to Earth. But nothing in his years as a human envoy had prepared him for this moment. The room was quiet, filled with soft blue light that came from the living walls themselves. The air smelled faintly sweet, like rain after a long storm. Elias sat on the low resting platform, his boots removed as protocol required, his back straight, his hands resting calmly on his knees. His heartbeat was steady, even though every instinct in his body told him something important was about to happen. The door opened without a sound. She entered the room slowly. She was tall, slender, and clearly not human. Her skin shimmered like pale silver under the light, smooth and unmarked. Long dark hair fell down her back. Her eyes, large and luminous, reflected the blue glow of the walls. She wore no clothing at all. Elias felt his breath catch for a fraction of a second. Training kicked in immediately. He did not move. He did not look away. But he did not stare either. He focused on her face, on her eyes, on the calm expression she carried, as if this moment were as ordinary as a greeting. She crossed the room without haste. Each step was careful, measured, deliberate. There was no shame in her posture, no hesitation, only purpose. The guards outside the room shifted uneasily. Elias could feel it through the faint vibrations in the floor. Human soldiers were watching from behind layered glass and sensors, their hands likely hovering close to their weapons. One wrong move in this peaceful world could become a battlefield. The alien woman stopped directly in front of him. Then she lowered herself, slowly, gracefully, and crawled onto the platform. She moved closer until she was within arm's reach. Her eyes never left his face. When she reached him, she placed her hands gently on either side of his legs, leaned forward slightly, and smiled. It was calm, curious, almost hopeful. Elias did nothing. He did not touch her. He did not recoil. He did not raise his hands. He did not speak. He simply stayed still. Inside his mind, thoughts raced. He remembered the briefing files that had been incomplete. He remembered the warnings about cultural gaps. He remembered how the Thalnari people valued honesty above all else, but how little humans truly understood what honesty meant to them. Lirai, that was her name. He had read it earlier that day. Scholar of First Truths. Observer of emerging species. This was not desire. This was not intimacy, at least not in the human sense. This was a test. Minutes passed, or seconds. Time felt strange in the quiet room. Lirai tilted her head slightly, studying him. Her smile did not fade. Finally, she spoke in careful, practiced galactic standard. "You are not afraid," she said. Elias answered just as carefully. "I am alert." Her eyes softened. Many species say that. Their bodies do not agree. "I was taught to respect guests," he replied, "and hosts." She considered this. Her gaze dropped briefly to his hands, still resting on his knees, open and empty. No threat. No claim. Outside, one of the human officers whispered urgently into a communicator, but no order was given. Elias had made it clear before entering the room. No interference unless blood was drawn. Lirai shifted her position slightly, enough to test him. His muscles tensed, but he did not move away. "Among my people," she said, "we remove all barriers when we seek truth." "I understand," Elias said, though he was not sure he fully did. She smiled again, this time with something like relief. Slowly, she leaned back and rose from the platform. She stood before him once more, unashamed, unguarded. "You have passed the first measure," she said. The door slid open again and she stepped out of the room. Only then did Elias allow himself to release the breath he had been holding. Later, after the formal meeting resumed, Elias learned just how close the galaxy had come to disaster. The Thalnari had been watching humanity for decades. They had seen human wars, human ambition, human hunger for expansion. To them, humans looked like a species barely holding itself back from violence. Dangerous, unstable. They believed that when presented with vulnerability, humans would take advantage. Liray had been chosen as the final proof. That night, Elias stood alone on the balcony of the embassy complex, looking out at the alien city. Tall crystal structures rose into the sky, glowing softly like stars, trapped in glass. The world was peaceful, fragile. A quiet step approached behind him. "You did not look at me as prey," Liray said. He turned. She now wore simple robes, loose and flowing. She looked more like a scholar than a symbol. "I didn't see you that way," he answered honestly. "Most do," she said. "Not because they are cruel, because they are afraid." Elias nodded. "Humans are afraid too. We just learn the hard way what happens when fear controls us." They stood in silence for a while. "The council will debate," Liray said at last. "Some will not accept what I witnessed." "What did you witness?" Elias asked. She looked at him. Restraint, choice, strength that does not need to prove itself. Far above them, ships moved silently through the sky. The future of humanity's place among the stars was being decided in rooms far more dangerous than battlefields. Elias knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had tested humanity's body. Next, it would test its soul. Part 2. 1600 words kaleko, or interesting hunacheya, or third-person style malek niha, or simple basic English ka, or violated free honacheya. Without short heading, Elias Rowan stood inside the observation chamber, hands clasped behind his back, staring through a wide, transparent wall. Beyond it, the Thalnary Council Hall stretched like a vast bowl of light and stone. Tall figures moved slowly in their places, their forms elegant and strange, their voices muted by distance and shielding fields. He was no longer just a guest. He was evidence. Word of what had happened the previous day had spread faster than Elias expected. Among the Thalnari, truth traveled quickly once witnessed. Some saw his restraint as wisdom, others saw it as deception. To them, a predator that could control itself was more dangerous than one that could not. Liray stood a few steps behind him. She had not spoken since entering the chamber. Her presence was calm, but Elias could sense tension beneath it. She was a scholar, but she was also now a symbol, whether she wanted to be or not. "The council will ask you questions," she said at last. "Some will be simple, some will not."
"I'll answer honestly," Elias replied. "That may not be enough."
He turned to face her. "Then I'll accept that too." She studied him for a long moment, as if trying to understand how a species capable of building weapons that cracked planets could also produce someone so quietly steady. The council session began without ceremony. A voice echoed through the chamber, amplified and layered, belonging to an elder whose body was too large to move easily. "Human envoy Elias Rowan," the voice said, "you stand accused of false restraint." Elias remained still. "I don't understand the accusation." "You were presented with vulnerability," the voice continued. "You did not act. Yet your species has acted violently in countless similar moments across its history." Another voice joined in, sharper, younger. "Restraint can be learned. Hunger can be hidden." Liray stepped forward. "I observed the encounter. There was no concealment." "You observed one human," the elder replied. "Not a species." Elias was finally allowed to speak again. "You're right," he said simply. "I don't represent all humans. I never claimed to." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several council members shifted, clearly unsettled by the answer. "Then why should your actions matter?" the sharp voice asked. "Because," Elias said, "you invited me knowing I was only one. You chose to test a single human and apply it to all. That was your decision, not mine." Silence followed. Some of the Thalnari did not like being reminded of their own assumptions. The armed figures at the end of the hall did not move. Their weapons were raised, but their fingers did not tighten. The lights of the archive flickered softly over ancient walls carved with symbols of memory and warning. Elias stood in front of Liare without thinking, his body placing itself between her and the threat as naturally as breathing. "You don't want this," Elias said, his voice steady but loud enough to carry. The leader of the group studied him. The alien's armor was darker than standard council issue, marked with sharp angles and old insignia. "You are the reason this world is breaking apart," the leader replied. "You should never have been allowed to stay." Elias shook his head. "I didn't break anything. I just stood where you wanted." Silence. Behind him, Lyrae continued working, her hands moving quickly across glowing panels. Data streamed upward in lines of light, old and new records blending together. Truth, once released, was difficult to cage again.
"You think this makes you strong?" the leader asked.
Crowds had gathered. Thalnari citizens lined the elevated paths and open plazas, watching silently as Elias passed. Some stared with suspicion, others with curiosity. A few placed their hands over their hearts. A gesture of respect Elias had learned meant acknowledgement without submission. Lyrae walked beside him, her head held high. "You have changed how they see us," she said quietly. "I didn't mean to," Elias replied. "That may be why it worked." The council chamber was full when they entered. No barriers this time, no observation walls. Elias stood in the open, surrounded by those who would decide humanity's place among the stars. The elder voice spoke again, but it sounded older now, heavier. "Lyrae of the First Truths," the elder said, "you defied council order." "I upheld it," she replied. "I revealed truth. You endangered stability." "Stability built on fear is already endangered," Lyrae said calmly. The elder turned to Elias. "Human envoy, you have forced our hand." Elias nodded. "That wasn't my goal. But I won't apologize." "Why?" the sharp voice asked. "Why endure this? Why not leave when given the chance?" Elias thought of Earth, of humanity's long history of walking away too late or staying too long for the wrong reasons. "Because," he said, "if we leave every time we are misunderstood, the universe stays small." Silence filled the chamber. Then something unexpected happened. Lyrae stepped forward and did what she had done once before, but this time, not in private. She removed her outer robe and let it fall to the floor. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Guards shifted. Counselors stiffened. Elias did not move. Lyrae crossed the floor slowly, every step deliberate, her posture calm and unashamed. She stopped in front of Elias, turned, and faced the council. This gesture, she said, was once used to expose predators. Today, it exposes liars. She looked at Elias, then lowered herself beside him, not onto him, but next to him. Equal, open, unafraid. Elias kept his hands at his sides. He did not look away, and he did not reach out. The chamber watched. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. That nothing spoke louder than any speech. The sharp voice broke first. "Enough," it said, weaker than before. "We have seen." The elder's tone shifted. "Humanity is not what we feared," he admitted. "But neither is it harmless." Elias inclined his head. "We never claimed to be." "What, then, do you claim to be?" the elder asked. Elias answered without hesitation. "Responsible." The council withdrew to deliberate. This time the wait was short. When they returned, the elder spoke for all. "Humanity will not be labeled a threat species, nor will it be placed under observation alone." Murmurs spread. "You will be classified," the elder continued, "as a stabilizing force, a species capable of restraint under power." Lyrae let out a breath she had been holding. Elias felt something loosen in his chest he had not known was tight. There will be consequences, the elder added. Extremists will resist this decision. They already are, Elias said. And humans must understand, the sharp voice said, quieter now, that this trust can be broken. So can fear. The session ended not with celebration, but with acceptance. Later, as the city lights glowed softly under a calm sky, Elias stood once more on the embassy balcony. Lyrae joined him, wrapped in her robe again, her expression thoughtful. You could have taken advantage, she said. Many would have. I know, Elias replied. Why didn't you? He thought for a moment. Because trust, once taken, never grows back the same.
She smiled at that. Far above them, ships changed course.
Messages spread. The galaxy adjusted, slowly, carefully, around a new truth. Humanity was not defined by what it could do, but by what it chose not to. Elias Rowan stood at the center of the council hall, surrounded by the assembled leaders of the Thalnari. The room was quiet now, the tension from the previous days replaced by a heavy anticipation. Every eye in the chamber watched him, but this time, there was not fear. There was curiosity, and something he had not expected. Respect. He remembered the first day he had entered this hall, the way the Thalnari had judged humanity before even seeing it. They had expected fear, or aggression, or a display of dominance. Instead, they had found him calm, steady, unshaken. That calm had begun to ripple through the galaxy, and now he could feel it. Lyrae stood beside him, her eyes scanning the room. Her robes flowed gently around her as she moved to step closer to the podium. The records are complete, she said quietly, almost to herself. The council now knows everything. The elder, who had watched him so intently for days, spoke first. His voice was slow, deliberate. Human envoy, you have endured what few in this hall could have imagined. You have been tested in every way, physically, mentally, morally, and you have passed not by force, but by restraint. Elias nodded. I only acted as I believed a human should, not as one tested by you, but as one who represents the hope of my people. There was murmuring in the hall. Some council members looked uneasy, others leaned forward, as if drawn in by something they did not yet understand. Many of our people feared humans, the elder continued. We saw only power and unpredictability. But what you have shown us is different. You show patience, endurance, and wisdom, traits not common among the species we observe. Elias glanced at Lyrae. She had been his guide, his interpreter, his witness, and now she had become his advocate. Her gaze met his, steady and unwavering. He could see the pride in her eyes, but also caution. This was far from over. A younger council member, one who had opposed him from the start, rose abruptly. And yet, if your restraint is a choice, what guarantees that humanity will not act when fear or desire drives them? What prevents them from becoming the predators we feared? Elias did not hesitate.
Nothing prevents humans from making mistakes. Nothing prevents us from failing.
But we choose to act with understanding, not fear. We choose to see others as beings, not as obstacles. And that choice is what defines us. The chamber was silent. Even the skeptic counselor seemed to pause, considering the words. The logic was simple, yet profound. Humans were not perfect, but they were aware of imperfection and willing to take responsibility. That acknowledgement, that willingness to be judged and still act with honor, was alien to most civilizations he had encountered. The elder nodded slowly. Then humanity is to be recognized not only as a member of the Interstellar Council, but as a stabilizing force among species, one whose actions may guide others toward peace rather than chaos. The words hung in the air, and a quiet ripple of approval spread among the members. Lyrae stepped closer to Elias, her voice soft but firm. It is done. They have made their decision. Elias allowed himself a small smile. Then we have begun something larger than myself, larger than anyone here. Outside the chamber, news began to spread rapidly. Across Thalnari cities, across neighboring star systems, citizens watched as the council broadcasted the decision. Humans were no longer feared. They were not the unknown monster lurking among the stars. They were, instead, a species capable of choice, restraint, and moral strength. In the following days, Elias and Lirai walked through the city freely. Citizens approached cautiously at first, curious and questioning, but their expressions softened as they witnessed his calm demeanor and careful words. Children pointed, adults whispered, and some even bowed slightly in respect. Elias felt something unfamiliar: hope for true understanding between species. Even the extremists had receded, at least temporarily. Their actions had only reinforced Elias's message. By refusing to strike, by showing patience, he had shifted not just the Council's opinion, but the galaxy's perception of humanity. One evening, Elias and Lirai stood on a high balcony overlooking the glowing city. The air was warm, carrying a faint scent of alien flora and the hum of distant ships. "You've changed them," Lirai said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried a weight of truth.
"I didn't do it alone," Elias replied. "You guided me."
"You showed them the truth without forcing it. That's why it worked." Lirai nodded, but she looked at him differently now. Not as a visitor, not as an outsider, but as someone whose courage had altered the course of her civilization's history. "Humans are dangerous when they don't choose wisely," Elias continued, his eyes sweeping the city below. "But they are capable of great good when they act with understanding. That choice, that responsibility, is rare among species." "And yet you bore it with ease," Lirai said, a smile curving her lips. "I have seen many face this challenge and falter." You inspired more than just the Council." Elias looked at her. "Then humanity has done more than survive this test. We've shown that we can be trusted." "Trust," Lirai said, "is more powerful than fear, more lasting than force. And you have proven that humans can hold it, even when others cannot." They stood together in silence, watching the soft glow of the city, the distant ships, the stars above. In that moment, Elias understood that their journey was not over. Trust, once given, could still be tested. Extremists might rise again. Other species might challenge humanity's intentions, but the foundation had been laid. Humanity's choice to act with honor, even in the face of danger and misunderstanding, had become a beacon. Days later, formal ceremonies were held. Humans were officially recognized as allies, protectors of peace, and moral stabilizers among the stars. Council records now carried Elias's name and actions as a precedent for future interactions with species whose understanding of morality differed from their own. Lirai's testimony and guidance ensured that the full story was preserved, accessible to anyone who wished to see how trust and restraint could overcome fear. Elias was offered a place within the Council itself, a rare honor for any species, let alone a human. He accepted with humility, knowing that his role was not to dominate or impress, but to guide and protect. And throughout it all, Lirai remained by his side. Their bond was not one of conquest or desire, but of mutual respect and shared purpose. Together they had faced fear, defied expectations, and rewritten the galaxy's understanding of humanity. As they looked out once more over the city, Elias spoke quietly, almost to himself. "The galaxy will test us again. It always does. But now they know we can endure, and we can choose wisely." Lirai smiled, the same calm, confident smile she had shown him in the beginning. "And they will remember it." The stars above shimmered, distant yet watchful, as though witnessing the birth of a new era. Humanity had arrived, not as a threat, not as a predator, but as a force of responsibility, of choice, and of hope. Elias Rowan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what had been accomplished. He knew there would be challenges ahead. He knew that not all would trust humanity and not all would accept the new balance. But he also knew this: when humanity chose to act with honor, when it chose to face fear without giving in to it, nothing in the galaxy could break it. And in that quiet certainty, humanity found its true strength. Lyrae placed a hand lightly on his arm, a simple gesture of solidarity. "You have done more than survive," she said. "You have redefined what your people can be." Elias nodded, a soft smile crossing his face. "And together, we will ensure they never forget it." The city glowed beneath them, the stars above watched, and the galaxy itself seemed to pause, acknowledging that a human, and one brave enough to stand beside her, had shown a new way forward. A way defined not by power, but by choice, not by fear, but by trust. And humanity, at last, had claimed its place among the stars. Another council member spoke, older than most, her tone slow and careful. "Human, tell us this. If vulnerability is sacred among us, what is it among your kind?" Elias did not answer right away. He thought of Earth, of wars broadcast across screens, of children hiding from bombs, of soldiers holding the hands of dying friends. "Vulnerability," he said, "is something we protect, because when it's abused, it breaks us, and when it's honored, it changes us." The council recessed soon after. No judgment was given, no decision announced. That uncertainty was worse than rejection. Hours later, Elias was escorted to a private residence within the embassy grounds. It was comfortable, but clearly a place of containment as much as hospitality. Subtle security fields hummed through the walls. Lyrae was allowed to stay. "This was never meant to go this far," she said quietly, sitting across from him. "Then why did it?" Elias asked. She folded her hands. "Because some among us need humans to be monsters. Peace is frightening when it challenges old beliefs." As if summoned by her words, alarms suddenly rippled through the building. Not loud, but sharp enough to cut through thought. Elias stood instantly. "What's happening?" Lyrae's eyes widened slightly. "Emotion alert! This sector is restricted." The human guards moved into position, weapons raised but not activated. Through the outer barrier, figures could be seen approaching. Thalnari, but armored, not council guards. Extremists. "They want proof," Elias said grimly. The first impact shook the outer wall. Energy flared, then faded. The barrier held. For now, a voice boomed from outside, amplified and furious. "Human! You hide behind restraint while your kind sharpens its claws." Elias stepped forward, moving toward the barrier before anyone could stop him. "Elias!" Lyrae called out. He activated the external channel. "I'm here," he said calmly. "If you want to judge humanity, judge me." The extremists hesitated. They had expected fear, resistance, not an open invitation. "You would offer yourself?" the voice demanded. "Yes." The human guards protested, but Elias raised a hand. "Stand down," he said quietly. "This is what they want to see." Lyrae's voice trembled. "They will hurt you." "Then they prove my point," he replied. The barrier lowered just enough to allow Elias to step outside. He did so slowly, unarmed, his hands visible. The extremists surrounded him, their armor humming with contained force. One stepped closer, towering over him. "Your restraint is a lie," the extremist said. "When threatened, you will strike." Elias met the alien's gaze. "If I must," he said, "but not to satisfy your fear." A sudden blast struck the ground near Elias's feet. Dust and light exploded upward. He flinched, but did not attack, did not run. Behind the barrier, Lyrae watched, her chest tight with fear. Another blast followed, closer this time. Elias staggered but stayed standing. "You see!" the extremist shouted to unseen observers. "They endure only until pain outweighs control." Elias looked up, breathing hard. "You're wrong," he said. Pain doesn't break us. Fear does. And I refuse to fear you. The extremists hesitated again. Around them, recording drones hovered, broadcasting the moment across the city. Finally, council guards arrived, moving swiftly, efficiently. The extremists were disarmed without further violence. Elias collapsed to one knee, exhausted but alive. Lee rushed to his side once the area was secure. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "Yes," Elias replied, forcing a tired smile. "I did." Later, as medics treated his injuries, messages began pouring in from across Thalnari space. Some were angry, some fearful, but many were uncertain. And uncertainty, Elias knew, was the first crack in prejudice. That night, Lee stood before the council again. "The test was not what you designed," she said. "It became what he chose." The council listened. For the first time, humanity was no longer being watched from a distance. It was being truly seen. Elias Rowan woke to soft light and the quiet hum of energy fields. For a moment he did not remember where he was. Then the ache in his body reminded him. His chest felt heavy, his arms were sore. Faint burns marked his clothes where the extremist weapons had struck close enough to leave their warning. He was alive. That fact alone seemed to bother some people. The room was clean and simple, built for recovery rather than comfort. Medical instruments hovered near the walls, their lights blinking slowly. 2 Thalnari guards stood near the door, tall and still, their eyes watching him without hostility, but without warmth either. He pushed himself into a sitting position. "You are awake," one of the guards said. "I figured," Elias replied dryly. Hard to miss the staring. The guard did not react. "You are to remain here until summoned." "Summoned by who?" Elias asked. "The council." So it had come to that. Lee arrived later that day. She walked in quietly, her robes a deep blue this time, her expression carefully controlled. When she saw Elias sitting upright, a flicker of relief passed through her eyes before she masked it. "You shouldn't have stood," she said. "If I hadn't," Elias replied, "they would have called it fear." She sat beside him. For a while, neither of them spoke. "They are divided," she said finally. "More than I have ever seen." "That sounds like progress," Elias said. "Or danger." The council did not summon him immediately. Instead, they waited. Hours passed. Then, Elias was not mistreated. He was fed, treated, allowed to walk within the chamber. But he was not free. No explanation was given. No accusations spoken aloud. It was a quiet kind of pressure, the kind meant to make someone desperate. Human command sent messages demanding clarification. The Thalnari replied politely and vaguely. Talks were ongoing. Patience was requested. Some of the more aggressive human officers urged action. Threats, withdrawals, military readiness. Elias asked to speak to them directly. "They want you to come home," Lee told him after the call. "They fear what this delay means." "And you?" Elias asked. "I fear what happens if you leave now." So Elias stayed. The council chamber felt different when he was finally summoned. The lights were dimmer, the air heavier. More council members were present than before, including some he had not seen at the first session. Their attention pressed down on him like weight. "You chose restraint again," the elder voice said, echoing through the hall. "Even when violence was offered to you." "I chose consistency," Elias replied. "Or strategy," another voice said. "Suffering can be used to manipulate." Some praised Elias's endurance. Others accused humans of playing a long game, using morality as a weapon. Extremist messages resurfaced, louder than before. Something was building. It broke the following day. The detention fields around the embassy flared violently as coordinated attacks struck multiple points at once. Not just extremists this time, but organized factions within Thalnari space. They did not target humans, they targeted Lerai. Elias felt the first tremor through the floor. "What's happening?" he demanded. Before the guards could answer, the alarms screamed. Lerai was already moving, her communicator active. "They are trying to silence witnesses," she said grimly. "Not just me, anyone who supports you." Elias did not hesitate. "Get me out of here!" "You are detained," the guard protested weakly. "Then release me," Elias snapped, "or watch everything you fear come true." The guards exchanged a look. Then one deactivated the field. Elias ran. The corridors were chaos, smoke, flashing lights, shouting voices. Elias moved fast despite the pain, following Lirai's guidance through back passages meant for emergencies. Explosions rocked the structure behind them. When they reached the transport bay, a small vessel waited, its engines humming. "Where are we going?" Elias asked. "To the Council Archive," Lirai replied. "If they destroy the truth, none of this matters." They launched just as another blast tore through the bay doors. The archive was old, ancient, built long before modern conflicts. It housed recorded testimonies from thousands of cycles, evidence of past mistakes, forgotten wars, broken promises. Lirai accessed the central chamber and began uploading her recordings. The test, the encounter, Elias's detention, the attack. "Once this goes public," she said, "there is no returning to silence." Elias stood watch at the entrance, unarmed, but ready. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Armed figures appeared, blocking the way out. "You should not have come here," their leader said. Elias stepped forward. "Then stop me." They hesitated, because by now they knew who he was, and for the first time the threat they faced was not a human weapon. It was a human who refused to become one, standing unarmed while others fight around you. "No," Elias said. "I think it makes me responsible." The words unsettled the group more than anger would have. Outside the archive, the conflict was spreading. News feeds across Thalnari space were lighting up as fragments of Lirai's uploads reached public channels. Citizens saw recordings of Elias refusing to touch her during the test. They saw him endure intimidation without striking back. They saw the extremist attack and the council's silence afterward. Confusion spread first, then doubt. At the council hall, emergency sessions were called. Elder members argued openly now, no longer hiding behind ritual language. Some demanded Elias's immediate removal. Others warned that harming him would confirm every fear he represented. "He has become a symbol," one counselor said bitterly, "whether we wanted one or not." "A mirror," another replied, "and we do not like what we see." Back in the archive, the standoff broke when one of the armed figures lowered their weapon. "We were told humans would kill us the moment they had a reason," that one said quietly. Elias met their eyes. "I still don't have a reason." That was enough. The leader hesitated, then signaled a retreat. "Leave," they ordered their group. "This place is already lost." They backed away, disappearing into the shadows of the ancient hall. Elias exhaled slowly, only then realizing how tense his muscles had been. Lirai finished the upload and turned to him. Her eyes shone, not with fear now, but with something close to awe. "It's done," she said. "They can't erase it." "What happens now?" Elias asked. She looked around the archive. "Now the council must choose who they are." They did not have to wait long. Council guards arrived soon after, but their posture was different. They did not aim their weapons. They escorted Elias and Lirai with care, not force, back toward the heart of the city. "Then why detain me?" he asked. "Why not remove me quietly?" Murmurs spread. The question landed where it was meant to. "You stand accused," the sharp voice said, "of being something worse than a brute." Elias raised an eyebrow slightly. "That's a new one." "A mirror," the voice continued. "You show us ourselves, our fear. are contradictions. Silence followed. Lerai stepped forward.
That is not a crime.
No, the elder agreed. But it is destabilizing. The council debated openly, speaking around Elias rather than to him. They spoke of balance, of historical wounds, of species that claimed peace while preparing war in secret. Elias listened. When they finally asked him to speak, he did not defend himself. I understand why you're afraid, he said. Humans learn too late that power without control destroys everything it touches. You are trying to avoid that mistake.
And yet you possess that power,
the sharp voice said. Yes, Elias agreed, and that's why we fear ourselves more than you ever could. The words unsettled the chamber.
You expect trust, another council member said.
Yet your fleets grow larger. Your technology spreads. Elias nodded. Because the universe is dangerous, and because we don't want to be helpless again. Again? The elder asked. Elias looked up. Humans were once alone, weak. We lost millions before we learned how to stand together. We won't repeat that. And if standing together means standing above others, the sharp voice pressed.
Then we failed, Elias said simply.
The council recessed once more. This time, when Elias was escorted away, the guard's posture had changed. Less rigid, less distant. Outside the chamber, Leray walked beside him. You are shifting them, she said quietly. I'm not trying to, Elias replied. I'm just not lying. That night, the city buzzed with quiet unrest. Public feeds debated humanity openly now.